When I was installing new flooring in the kitchen, my wife didn't notice me under the cabinet by the sink when her sister came over. "Have you told him you're moving out next month yet?" she asked. My wife replied, "No, not yet. I have to get a promotion first and then pick up half the bills." They discussed the details while I silently continued to work. I got angry, but finished the repairs without giving myself away. 5 days later, she bitterly regretted her words. "I've been lurking here for years, never really thinking I'd post anything myself. But today, it feels like I have no other choice. This is all still so raw, like accidentally smashing your thumb with a hammer, sharp, overwhelming, and impossible to ignore. Maybe getting it all out will help me move on. My name's Jason, I'm 33 years old, and until recently, I was married to Emma, 31. We'd been together for 7 years. About 3 years ago, we bought our first house. It wasn't anything fancy, just a simple 3-bedroom place with good bones, but stuck in the 90s. Luckily, being in the renovation business, I knew I could transform it over time. Our marriage, I thought, was a lot like that house. Solid foundation, some outdated parts, a few cracks needing fixing, but ultimately strong and worth the work. Or so I believed. Lately, Emma had been hinting that she wanted the kitchen done before summer. I'd noticed other things too. She stayed late at work more often, seemed glued to her phone, and would take calls in another room. Yeah, it looked suspicious, but I told myself it was just stress. She was up for a big promotion, and I figured once things settled, we'd be okay. Stupidly, I thought redoing the kitchen would show her I was committed to our future. Last Saturday, I rolled up my sleeves and started tearing out the old vinyl flooring. The stuff was ancient, peeling at the corners, stained from decades of life. The plan was to install new vinyl planks that looked like hardwood. Emma had picked the color herself, excited about how they'd match the backsplash we'd selected together. I'd already finished most of the demo work and was lying half under the sink, adjusting pipes to fit the new cabinet layout when I heard the front door open. Emma wasn't supposed to be home until after lunch. She'd gone out for brunch with her sister, Brooke. I was about to call out when I heard them laughing, carefree, like nothing in the world could touch them. Then Brooke's voice floated over, casual and sharp as a razor. "So, have you told him you're moving out next month?" I froze, wrench in hand, barely daring to breathe. Then Emma's voice, cold, unfamiliar, calculating, answered. "Not yet. I need to make sure the promotion is finalized first. Once that's locked in, I'll take half the accounts. If I leave before it goes through, it could mess everything up." Brooke asked if she was worried I'd figure it out. Emma just laughed. "Jason's too busy playing handyman. He's predictable. He'll be crushed, but he won't fight." I gripped the wrench so hard my knuckles turned white. My entire body went ice cold. I stayed frozen under that sink, heart hammering, as they continued chatting like they were planning a casual shopping trip. Emma explained she already had an apartment lined up and had been slowly moving her personal items over to Brooke's place. She mentioned setting up a separate bank account, one I knew nothing about. 7 years together, and she was talking about me like I was some clueless fool she was finally ready to discard. And the worst part? We'd been talking about starting a family. Saving for fertility treatments because Emma had PCOS. There was $15,000 sitting in a special account earmarked for a future she knew would never happen. The betrayal clawed at my chest, but I didn't move. I lay there like a corpse, listening, absorbing every word. They eventually moved into the living room, voices fading but still clear enough to catch snippets. Emma worried about how much she could take from our joint accounts. Brooke recommended getting advice from a friend who had cleaned out her ex during her own divorce. They were planning it like a military operation. Emma even said she wanted to wait until after her parents' anniversary party next month, wouldn't want to ruin their celebration, she said with a laugh. How considerate. After what felt like an eternity but was probably only 20 minutes, they finally headed back out. I waited until I heard the door close before I crawled out from under the sink, my body shaking. I wandered the half-demolished kitchen in a daze. My mind was racing. My first instinct was to pack my stuff and leave, vanish before she got home. My second was to confront her the second she walked through the door. But then, I remembered her smug voice, the certainty with which she'd said I was predictable. Predictable. That word burned itself into my brain, hotter than any rage I'd ever felt. If she thought she had me all figured out, she was dead wrong. I wasn't going to storm out. I wasn't going to confront her. No, I was going to be smarter. I was going to learn everything, gather evidence, and when the time came, I'd blow up her little world so thoroughly that she'd never see it coming. I took a deep breath, wiped the sweat and dust from my face, and went back to work on the floor like nothing had happened. Every plank I laid was a promise to myself. I won't be your fool. I won't be your stepping stone. When Emma came home around 6, she waltzed in like everything was normal, all smiles and casual affection. "Wow, it's looking amazing," she said, walking across the new flooring. "You're incredible, babe. Want to order takeout tonight?" "Sure," I said, smiling back as if my whole world hadn't just imploded. That night, we ate Chinese food on the couch, watching some forgettable show on Netflix. She cuddled up next to me, laughing at something stupid on TV, resting her head on my shoulder. I felt nothing, just a gaping hollow space where love used to live. Later, she even initiated sex. I went through the motions, every touch feeling like sandpaper against raw flesh. Was it guilt? Habit? Damage control? I didn't care. Before we drifted off to sleep, I told her I loved her. The words tasted like ash in my mouth. Inside, I made a different vow. "You have no idea what's coming, Emma. But you will. Very, very soon." When I was sure she was asleep, her breathing slow and steady, I slipped out of bed and started my own private investigation. Her phone was locked. No surprise. But her laptop was another story. She'd left it open, logged in. I went straight to our joint bank accounts. I found it quickly. Regular transfers, a few $100s here and there, always for groceries or personal expenses. Except the amounts were far higher than usual, adding up to thousands over a few months. I took photos of every transaction with my phone. At 3 a.m., I sat on the back porch, the cool night air barely cutting through the rage simmering inside me. I texted my best friend Matt. "Need to talk. Marriage emergency. Not a joke." He responded immediately, "Tomorrow. Lunch. Our usual spot." I slipped back into bed just before Emma stirred, pretending to be sound asleep when she kissed my forehead and whispered how much she loved me. I said nothing. I wasn't going to be the naive, predictable handyman she thought I was. The kitchen renovation would continue exactly how she wanted it. Flawless, beautiful, perfect. But while I worked, I would be building something else behind her back. The perfect plan to make her regret ever thinking she could outsmart me. The perfect plan to make her regret ever thinking she could outsmart me. The next morning, I woke up feeling a strange sense of clarity. The anger hadn't faded, but it had hardened into something sharper, something more controlled. Emma was already gone by the time I rolled out of bed. Early morning meeting, according to her text. I wondered if she'd be locking down her promotion today, the same one she planned to use as a springboard to ditch me. I spent a few minutes just walking around the kitchen, looking at the work I'd done. It was beautiful, no question, and she thought she'd get to enjoy it without me. Not a chance. At noon, I met Matt at our usual sandwich place. As soon as I sat down across from him, he gave me a once-over and frowned. "Damn, man," he said. "You look like you haven't slept in a week." "Feels about right," I muttered. Over greasy burgers and lukewarm coffee, I laid everything out. What I heard, what I'd found in our bank accounts, what I'd seen in her behavior. Matt listened, jaw clenching tighter with every detail. When I finished, he leaned back and said, "You gotta hit back harder than she expects. She thinks she knows you. Prove her dead wrong." We spent the next hour mapping out a rough plan. First step, protect myself financially. Second, gather every scrap of evidence. Third, consult a divorce attorney quietly, without tipping my hand. "Your only advantage right now is surprise," Matt said. "Play it smart. Play it patient." When I got home that afternoon, Emma was still at work, or wherever she really went these days. I threw myself back into the renovation, using the physical labor to keep my head from exploding. I laid the rest of the floor with mechanical precision, each plank a steady drumbeat of determination. Later that night, Emma texted to say she had a work dinner. I knew better. I used the alone time to start making moves. First, I called my bank and opened a new individual account. Second, I scheduled a consultation with a divorce lawyer Matt recommended. It was set for Wednesday during my lunch break. While installing the last section of flooring near the fridge, I moved it out and found something. A small, leather-bound journal Emma must have dropped months ago. I'm not proud of what I did next, but I opened it. Reading her entries was like taking a sledgehammer to my chest, over and over. She wrote about feeling trapped, about needing a fresh start, about some coworker named Ryan. Nothing explicitly romantic, but enough flirtatious mentions to make my blood boil. The worst entry was only a few weeks old. Jason wants to start fertility treatments again. I feel guilty. But what's the point in building a family with someone I'm planning to leave? I closed the journal, hands shaking. When Emma got home that night, she smelled faintly of wine, her makeup freshly touched up. She kissed me on the cheek, told me how amazing the kitchen was looking, and said she couldn't wait to show it off. I smiled, murmured something about just wanting her to be happy, and forced myself back to work, my heart a battlefield between fury and icy focus. That night, as we lay in bed, Emma snuggled close, murmuring about the future. I stared at the ceiling, stone still, promising myself that her future wouldn't include me. Tuesday morning, Emma left early for a big presentation. I called in sick to my own job, feigning a sore throat. I needed the time. I spent the entire day preparing. First, I photographed every valuable item in our house. TVs, jewelry, computers, tools, anything that might be argued over later. Then I made copies of all important documents. Tax returns, property deeds, car titles, insurance papers. I stored everything on a flash drive and hid it where she'd never think to look. Next, I checked every shared account. Bank balances, credit cards, retirement savings. I took screenshots of everything. By Tuesday night, I had a complete map of our financial situation. Every asset, every liability, every vulnerability. The kitchen was nearly done too. All that remained was installing the new sink and finishing the backsplash. Emma came home beaming, carrying takeout sushi. "You are amazing," she said, planting a kiss on my cheek. "We should have a dinner party to show everyone." "Sounds great," I said, forcing a smile. "Perfect. Let her plan a celebration. Let her think everything was going exactly how she wanted." Wednesday morning, while Emma was out, I added one last special touch. Behind the cabinet under the new sink, I sealed a small, waterproof Ziploc bag into the wall. Inside was a printed transcript of the conversation I'd overheard, copies of her secret bank transfers, her apartment lease, and select journal entries. Petty? Maybe, but it felt damn good. Later that day, during lunch, I met the divorce attorney. She was a sharp, no-nonsense woman who'd seen every dirty trick in the book. When I laid out my evidence, she nodded approvingly. "You're lucky you found out before she made her move," she said. "We'll make sure you're protected." That afternoon, I moved half of our joint savings, exactly 50%, into my new personal account. $37,000. Not a penny more than my share. When Emma got home that evening, she was glowing, practically vibrating with excitement. "Guess what?" she said, tossing her purse on the counter. "My promotion might come through sooner than expected. Maybe Monday or Tuesday." I congratulated her, kissed her on the forehead, and silently marveled at how deeply she was sinking into her own fantasy. That night, after she fell asleep, I checked the parental monitoring app I'd installed on our shared laptop. New emails between Emma and Brooke discussing the apartment lease. Emma had signed it the day before. Move-in date exactly 4 weeks away. Everything was falling into place. By Friday, the kitchen would be done. By Sunday, everything would come crashing down. I couldn't wait to watch her world implode. Because no matter how beautiful the new kitchen looked, the real renovation project was almost complete. And this time, the demolition would be permanent. Friday morning rolled around, and I was up before the sun. Today was about the finishing touches and final preparations. I started by double-checking everything I'd already done. Photos of valuables? Check. Screenshots of our financial accounts? Check. Copies of all legal documents? Secured. With Emma still asleep upstairs, I slipped into our safe and retrieved the last of my grandmother's jewelry. Family heirlooms Emma sometimes wore but never owned. I packed them carefully and drove them over to my parents' house. Out of reach. Next, I headed to the bank. Closed our joint credit card account. Opened a new one under my name with a different institution. I even called the fertility clinic, explaining that I needed to close our account. The $15,000 we'd saved would be refunded within 5 to 7 business days, sent to my personal account. By the time I returned home, Emma was already gone, busy with last-minute meetings about her promotion. Perfect. I spent the rest of the day putting the final touches on the kitchen, installing under-cabinet lighting, sealing the caulking around the new sink, touching up paint along the baseboards. The last plank of molding snapped into place with a satisfying click. It was a beautiful kitchen, one she would barely get to enjoy, but I wasn't done yet. I carefully removed the new cabinet under the sink, the very one I'd been working under when I first overheard her betrayal. Inside the wall cavity, I placed a sealed Ziploc bag, tucked deep out of sight. Inside it, a printed transcript of the conversation I'd overheard, copies of Emma's bank transfers, the apartment lease, and pages from her journal. A hidden time capsule, a reminder she would never be able to shake, gnawing at her for years. Petty? Sure. Satisfying? More than you could imagine. When Emma got home that evening, she squealed when she saw the finished kitchen. "It's even better than I imagined," she gushed, snapping pictures for Instagram. Hashtags like #DreamKitchen, #HomeGoals, and #Blessed flooded her stories. I plastered a smile on my face and suggested we celebrate with takeout sushi. She eagerly agreed, barely able to contain her excitement about the small dinner party she'd planned for Saturday night. Friends, laughter, admiration, everything she'd ever wanted. Everything she thought she'd get to keep. Later that evening, Emma came downstairs wearing lingerie I'd never seen before. She sauntered into the kitchen, pressed against me, whispered about breaking in the new space properly. For a moment, I almost cracked. Almost. But I reminded myself, 2 more days. Just 2. I went through the motions, cold and detached inside. Every kiss, every caress, every forced moan was another nail hammered into the coffin of our marriage. After she fell asleep, I checked the monitoring app again. More texts to Brooke. "Kitchen looks amazing. Almost feel bad about the timing. But not really. He'll find another house to fix up. LOL. My stomach twisted, but I swallowed it down. This was almost over. Saturday morning, Emma was a ball of nervous energy, running around making preparations for the dinner party. She baked cookies, arranged flowers, and double-checked the wine supply. I meanwhile finalized my own preparations. I changed my direct deposit information at work, rerouting my paychecks to my new account. I downloaded copies of all the photos we'd stored in our shared cloud account, our wedding, vacations, holidays, then quietly deleted my access. Matt came by mid-afternoon under the pretense of dropping off tools and helped me move some essentials, personal mementos, important documents, to his garage. Nothing Emma would immediately notice missing, but things I couldn't afford to leave behind when everything went down. As Matt handed me a final box, he paused. "You sure you want to wait until tomorrow?" he asked. "Wouldn't it be easier to do it now, before the guests come?" I shook my head. "No. I want her to have her moment," I said. "The higher she feels tonight, the harder the crash will be tomorrow." He nodded, respect shining in his eyes. "You're a bigger man than I am." "Maybe," I said, "or just more patient." By 6 o'clock, guests began arriving. Brooke was first, giving me an awkward, too-long hug. Her eyes flickered with something like guilt when she pulled away. The evening felt surreal. I grilled steaks on the back patio, poured drinks, laughed at jokes. I was the picture of the loving, supportive husband. Emma, for her part, played her role flawlessly. She floated from guest to guest, showing off the new kitchen, basking in their admiration. She smiled, laughed, and spoke about all the projects Jason's done around the house. It was like watching a movie where I was the unwitting villain, blissfully unaware of my impending downfall. During dinner, the conversation shifted to future plans. One couple mentioned they were thinking about trying for a baby. Without missing a beat, Emma jumped in. "Jason and I are thinking about it too," she said brightly. "Maybe later this year." I nearly choked on my beer. Across the table, Brooke caught my eye and quickly looked away. The audacity was almost impressive. After dessert, the party wound down. Guests filtered out with hugs and compliments. Emma was practically glowing. Tonight was perfect, she sighed, collapsing onto the couch next to me. Yeah, I said, wrapping an arm around her shoulders. I can't wait for everything that's coming, she whispered. Me neither, I murmured. In the darkness of the living room, I smiled to myself. Because tomorrow, everything she'd built on lies was going to come crashing down. And I would be the one swinging the hammer. The final demolition was just hours away. The final demolition was just hours away. Sunday morning dawned dark and heavy. Thick storm clouds crowded the sky, and rain tapped against the kitchen windows like an ominous drumbeat. Perfect. Emma was still upstairs asleep when I got up and made coffee. I sat at the kitchen island, admiring the space I'd poured so much sweat and pain into. The gleaming counters, the flawless floors, the soft under-cabinet lighting, every detail perfect. Every detail about to become part of the scene of her downfall. Today was the day. Her parents were supposed to arrive around noon for lunch. Emma had insisted she wanted to show off the finished kitchen. They had no idea what they were walking into. At 9 o'clock, Emma shuffled downstairs in her robe, yawning. Did you make enough coffee for me? She asked, glancing at her phone. Of course, I said, sliding a mug her way. She smiled distractedly, too absorbed in texting, probably Brooke making last-minute arrangements. 3 more hours. I spent the time doing small chores, keeping myself busy and calm. I double-checked that my phone was charged and set up in the kitchen window, discreetly aimed at the island where the action would unfold. I wasn't recording for legal reasons, just for myself. Proof. Sanity. At 12:15, the doorbell rang. Right on cue as the first heavy rumbles of thunder rolled across the sky. Emma rushed to answer it, welcoming her parents with hugs and bright chatter. Her dad, Tom, immediately commented on how great the exterior paint job looked, a project I'd finished the previous summer. Her mom, Diane, handed over a bouquet of flowers for the table. I greeted them warmly, feeling a strange calm settle over me. This was it. Emma led them through the grand tour, beaming with pride as she pointed out the custom backsplash, the soft-close cabinets, the new sink. She spoke about the renovation as if it were a team effort, as if she hadn't been scheming to leave me the whole time. Her parents oohed and awed appropriately, asking about costs, complimenting the work. Emma waved them off, laughing, saying we'd talk numbers later. I nearly laughed myself. Because the numbers we'd be discussing soon had nothing to do with the kitchen. We settled around the table, Emma dishing up lasagna she'd baked earlier, her mom's recipe. Conversation flowed naturally. Emma's promotion came up, of course. She launched into her rehearsed speech about how excited she was, how it would mean new opportunities for our future. She even squeezed my hand across the table, smiling lovingly. That was my cue. I set down my fork, wiped my mouth, and said calmly, actually, I have something I'd like to share too. Everyone turned to look at me. Emma's smile faltered just slightly. I reached for my phone, tapped the screen a few times, and set it gently in the middle of the table. The recording began to play. Emma's and Brooke's voices filled the room, crystal clear against the rain hammering the windows. Have you told him you're moving out next month? Not yet. I need to secure my promotion first. Then take half the accounts. Silence. When the clip ended, the only sound was the storm outside. Emma's mom was the first to speak, her voice trembling. Emma, is that really you? Emma's face cycled through confusion, shock, anger, then pure panic. She jumped to her feet, yelling that I had violated her privacy, that I was manipulating things, that this was taken out of context. I stayed seated, calm. When she finally ran out of steam, I spoke. I didn't record your conversation, I said. I was under the sink, working, when you and Brooke came home. I heard every word. Her dad pushed his plate away, staring at Emma like he didn't recognize her. Is it true? He asked, voice hard. Are you really planning to leave Jason? Have you already rented an apartment? Emma's eyes filled with tears, not genuine remorse, but the manipulative kind I'd seen before when she was caught lying. She launched into accusations, blaming me for being emotionally unavailable, saying she'd felt trapped, saying Brooke put ideas in her head. Her mom reached across the table, taking her hand. Why didn't you come to us? Diane whispered. We could have helped. Emma stammered, trying to salvage the moment, spinning stories faster than she could keep up with. That's when I laid everything out. I calmly explained the secret bank account, the apartment lease, the personal items she'd already moved out, the text messages with Ryan from her office, the journal entries I'd found. With each revelation, her parents' faces grew more horrified. Finally, her father stood up, fixing her with a look that could have frozen the rain midair. We need time to process this, he said stiffly. We're leaving. Her mother hugged me tightly before following her husband out the door. Neither of them could bring themselves to look at Emma. When the door closed, Emma turned on me like a wounded animal. She screamed, cried, begged, threatened. Accused me of destroying her life, of ruining everything. I let her rant until she burned herself out. Then I dropped the final bombshell. While you were planning your exit, I said I was planning mine. I explained that I'd already moved half of our savings into my personal account, that I'd closed our joint credit cards, that I'd redirected the fertility fund, that I'd documented every valuable item with timestamps and receipts. She stared at me in dawning horror. She grabbed her phone, fingers fumbling, and checked our accounts. Half the money. Gone. Legally. She sobbed, saying it had all been a mistake, that she loved me, that we could work through this. I shook my head. The divorce papers are ready, I said. They'll be filed first thing tomorrow. In a final, desperate move, she tried seduction, stepping closer, pressing herself against me. Think about everything we've built, she whispered. The house. The memories. I stepped back. I said. Which is why I'm walking away. I grabbed my pre-packed suitcase and headed for the door. Before leaving, I turned back and gestured around the beautiful kitchen. I left you a little surprise behind the walls, I said. A reminder. Her face crumpled as she realized she had no idea what or when she'd discover it. I walked out into the rain, feeling the weight lift off my shoulders. Matt was waiting in his truck across the street, engine running, passenger door open. I climbed in, dripping wet, and slammed the door. Ready to start over? He asked. I nodded. More than ready. As we drove away, I didn't look back. Not once. Because some foundations, no matter how well you build on them, are rotten to the core. And the only thing to do is tear them down and start again, this time on solid ground.